Hello, everyone. Welcome to Next Big Future. It's a big day for me because Elon Musk cited one of my articles on Twitter. And to discuss this and other topics, we have my guest, Randy Kirk. Hi, Randy.
Hello out there. Yeah, Brian, come on now. It's like we need to have at least some champagne or something on your show today.
All I got is Diet Mountain Dew.
That's it, huh?
Yeah.
Well, at least everybody can celebrate with you for that's a real milestone.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. Screenshot that shows that Elon tweeted out my 2018 article talking about the price of making subway and tunnels in the United States, Europe, and Japan. So he cited it as being $1 billion per year, and that's roughly the cost in the United States.
$1 billion per mile.
$1 billion per mile. That's right. Sorry. And one of the big ones is New York 2nd Avenue subway, where they were in 2018 about $2.6 billion per mile, and now they're at $4 billion per mile. So it's just crazy expensive. And even other places in Europe and Japan are also quite expensive. Not that expensive, but still far more expensive, especially when compared to Boring Company charging $10 to $15 million per mile for the Vegas work that they're doing. So in terms of where do we think that's going, so Boring Company could, if they make 40 of their new proof rock tunneling machines, they can make over 10,000 miles per year, which would be far more than the 20 miles per year. Actually 20 miles over 20 years that that other place have had. Where do you think they're going there with Boring Company and with the tunneling there?
Yeah, I've really had to question why it hasn't happened faster. Everything about the Boring Company concept should make sense to our city leaders, our regional leaders, our federal leaders, the folks that are usually making the decisions about roads and transportation corridors. I mean, everything about it, everything from not having to buy right of ways at the level of the land. You can actually have structures above these. And so you don't absolutely have the right of way, but you could actually build them under existing highways. I've mentioned before on my channel that Highway 60 out here in Los Angeles, which goes from the port to the Inland Empire, is jammed with trucks, and you could just build right under that Highway 60. You don't have to buy any right-of-ways at all. You probably already know a lot about the subsurface at these locations. You certainly don't have a water problem. You can have a water table problem in Los Angeles. There is definitely water table issues. But anyway, some of these things I would think would be easy and smart and fast. And so I'm a little bit shocked that they haven't been moving on these a lot faster than they have. Now, it might be partially because this is a brand new company. And even Elon and even the folks that are running it, they might be looking forward to this period that they've been in of testing things out, trying things, making sure that they know what they're doing before they get into even bigger projects.
Yeah. So one of the issues for the costs of those, insane level of cost is that, like, if I'm just widening the highway, 1 mile of widened highway, that can also cost $100 million per mile, even $1 billion per mile. It's because if I'm doing it in a bitty city, LA, for example, I got to go to each one of the property owners on the side of the highway and buy that chunk of real estate. And then they know, okay, you need to widen this up. So they're not going to charge you the regular price. They're going to say, oh, it's hugely inconvenient for me to do this thing. So then each one, along a mile, I could, 5,000 feet, linear feet, each 50 foot lot, I got to pay each one off. So that's 100 lots. And so then that's, $1 million a pop. That's $100 million right there. So that's what goes through the cost. And then why is Vegas doing it? Vegas doing it on the Strip, that's all built up. Yep. Bellagio is not going to give you a bunch of stuff. It may be elevated. They do the elevated train thing. But if I want to connect up all of them, the Strip is already there. how much would it cost to rip up the strip and do it? And they don't want to, disrupt things for the traffic for like 5 years, because there was the example of the Big Dig in Boston. That thing messed up Boston traffic for years and ended up costing billions upon billions of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah, and the methodologies that Elon is using with regard to what I saw some program recently, I can't remember where it was, where they're talking about how they're going to get into the ground, and people are saying, well, you build this giant excavation and then you lower the device into the ground, and that's how people have been doing it. He says, why don't we just do it like the Gophers do it and just aim down and come in at an angle? And I'm like, why? How was that not thought of before now? And what
you can
that makes.
And you see the pictures of it, where basically the boring thing, which is big giant cigar thing, will come out of the ground and go into the ground at that angle as coming in and out. So that's as simple as they do it. And then they also just use their electric vehicles, because you don't need to have a special train or BART thing. Like, I think the Bay Area Rapid Transit System, they spent $1 billion getting upgraded rail cars.
Yes.
So again, everything has these huge costs,
because it's all custom, and you're making small quantities of them, and you don't move that many more people. In fact, I'm thinking that Elon is maybe proving in Vegas that you can move more people per hour using individual vehicles than you can move putting them on a train.
Right. And then the other thing about all these costs, for cities about this stuff, and that was one part of my article that Elon cited, was I had a little video from The Sopranos. So if people watch The Sopranos, one of the biggest money makers for Sopranos, as well as Carmine Lapertusi, the New York crime family, was the Esplanade. So the Esplanade was a highway or whatever construction work project. And the way the mob would make money on it, where they say, okay, I pay my union guy X dollars per hour, but my general, I run the project, I get my cut, which is standard practice, right? General project manager construction as the thing, and but then how they do the cut, may be more egregious. And they would also have things where, Paulie Walnuts, one of the guys there would get hours on the project for doing nothing, right? So he'd just be racking up hours and stuff like that. And they would also make money because they controlled it. Who was the subcontractor? Who got some other parts of the bid? They would get bribes from those guys to do it. The thing is, a lot of these projects, even without the mob, are run similarly, right? So why is $4 billion per mile in the New York subway Avenue 2 going to $4 billion, right? And the thing is, you give it to the lowest cost bidder.
Yes.
But the bidding does not correlate to the final cost. They'll run up. Is it because of incompetence? Right. Is it because of corruption?
Both.
Some of both. Both. Yeah. Yeah. So if you can get, a standard boring company thing where everything's vertically integrated, I'm digging through, there'll be less of that. But is corruption part of the deal? Like, are the politicians getting something and so they're not approving it?
That could very well be. Absolutely. Well, yeah. and you also, but again, the thing that gets confusing to me, it's been confusing to me for years. Solar has been around for a long time. The batteries have now been a pretty significant thing for quite a while. BEV cars have been out there now, in quantities for 5, 6, 7 years. And yet the governments, the very people that are screaming the loudest about carbon emissions and even the things that we all agree on, like just getting the air cleaner, the governments have not been purchasing these items for their own use. They're mandating them for you and me. Not that I mind being mandated, because I want to be EV anyway, but they're doing all these mandates to get everybody else to do certain things. But the governments themselves are not buying they had to be forced. The post office had to be forced to put part of their new purchases in 2024 into electric vans as opposed to into gasoline or hydrogen or whatever they were using.
Right.
Spattering of everything, I think.
And the thing is the government, like the waste and inefficiency, goes beyond public transportation things, right?
Yes.
Because a nuclear submarine, used to be built for under $1 billion, and now it's like $5 billion, right? They have the double-digit inflation all the way through. They have the Space Launch System, which is the NASA rocket. And what is Space Launch System? Oh, it looks like Apollo, but it's taking shuttle parts mostly and then reconfiguring it into an Apollo thing. They've been really trying to do that for 4 decades. The Space Launch System only started 15 years ago or something like that. But before that, there was Constellation. Constellation with the same contractors getting money for it. They got like $8-9 billion. They got one test launch off, but there was like 100 problems with it, literally 100 problems with it. And so then they said, okay, too expensive, crazy. So let's change it over. Space Launch System. Some Alabama senator, Arizona senator was behind all that. Still the same guys. Now we got one test launch so we had 2 test launches over 20 years, right? And then all this money was going into it. Same same parts and same contractors. The engines, RS-25s, which again, used on the space shuttle, now used on this thing, cost $100 million, one engine. The Raptor engines that SpaceX has made, more powerful than the RS-25, simpler, $1 million or less, and they go into $250 million, $250,000, right? So, 100 times cost differences on these things. Again, not just space things, not just transportation. It's across the board. Like the F-35s, heading toward the $1 trillion of overall lifetime program cost, hospitals, this and that. So let's transition over to some space stuff.
As long as we're talking about space, I hear Elon wants to add some additional inches to his phallus.
Yes. So the Starship, Super Heavy Starship.
Yes.
It already is the biggest rocket ever built, bigger than Apollo, bigger than a big Russian, better than Saturn V, bigger than Russian rocket,
and more powerful.
And more powerful. Yeah, 2.5 times more powerful than Apollo.
Right.
And then getting more powerful because they keep improving the engines. But it's 120 meters tall, right? So clothing, like 400 some feet roughly. So 10 feet per story of the building, 40 stories tall, right? For that thing, taller than the Empire, taller than the Statue of Liberty, right? So he says he can make it 10 to 20% taller, right? For longer, because then, on the ground longer, stacked up is taller. So 20%. So 120 meters, 20%, that's 24 meters, right? That's like 60 feet, which is over half the height. 60% of the length of the shuttle orbiter would be this extra height of 140 meters. So it's not just long, because it's interesting how much volume is inside. The current Starship has 1,000 cubic meters, right? So it's 9 meters wide, right? Mm-hmm. And so the payload section, for 9 by 9, that's about like 60 cubic meters in a disk section. So if you go 15 meters up roughly, then you can have 1,000 cubic meters. So if I stretch it, then I'm stretching the fat part of it, right? So if I go 10 meters of stretching, I could add 800, 700 cubic meters to this thing. If I manage my fuel right, I might double it up to 2,000 cubic meters of volume inside.
Now, is that going to also increase the weight capacity?
So the weight capacity goes because they will improve the engines.
Engines, I see. Okay.
Right. So we have the Raptor 3 engine. I'm not sure to give them that name, but it's basically a new Raptor beyond the Raptor 2, which had 269 tons of thrust or something like that, which was 20% improvement of the previous one, also lighter. In the Walter Isaacson biography, a chapter in there talked about Raptor engines in factories and stuff like that. And they talked about a new engine called LEAT.
Yeah.
It's 1337. And then if you look at those numbers as letters, it's LEET, LEAT. So I think it's like referring to Elite. I think it's referring to a video game or something like that. So he was talking about eliminating all these parts. There's another tweet where he talked about increasing the pressure in the, so the 20% increase on the Raptor 2 was because they increased the bar of pressure to 350 bar.
Right.
And then talking about going to 450. So that would mean more thrust. So lighter weight, more thrust. I think they can get up towards 320 tons of thrust per engine. So getting so that the 33 engines will be 3 times as powerful as Apollo, the Saturn V. And then they with the just the old with the Raptor 2s they just tested in May, Elon talked about 200 tons of reusable, fully reusable launch weight, probably like 300 tons expendable. So with its further improvement, looking at 250 tons fully reusable, and maybe 350, maybe 400 tons expendable.
So would this mean, for instance, I mean, I like to look at these are great numbers, but practically speaking, he's been talking about being able to move 100 people on the point-to-point routes. So if you're going to LA to Hong Kong in 45 minutes, that you could take 100 people and it would be roughly the same cost as currently as business class. Mm-hmm. Would this increase mean that you could move 200 people, or would it mean that you could move a lot more than 200 people?
So actually, you didn't quite get the quote right. He says he can move 1,000 people in a Starship single stage. So how would he do that? He would pack people in like you're riding a roller coaster. So everyone's going to be, kind of going around, and you'll be laid back on it like a recliner, because you're going to go up at 3 Gs, something like that. Right. Briefly, only a few seconds at 3 Gs, and so you're up and down in half an hour or an hour, right? So no bathroom breaks. Right. If you have a problem, holding it for an hour, you better wear, Depends. Okay. And so then you go up and down, no food, because you're up and you're down, you're going at 3 Gs and stuff like that. So you're riding it like that. So then if you increase that volume, you could be heading towards 1,500 or 2,000 people in a go, right? And if you're looking at fuel costs of around $1 million or $500,000, and then you're looking at amortized costs because I'm flying these things 10 times per day. Right. So then I'm flying it like 3,000 times per year, right? So then if it costs, $10 million, $3 million, then the amortized cost goes down to like $1,000 per day if you have some maintenance or something. Then you're all in per flight cost is less than $1 million. So then if it's 3,000 people, it's like $300. Right? Yeah. And it could be cheaper. They could head to $150 on that. So 20 times faster, cheaper. They just need to prove the safety, and they'll do that with unmanned cargo flights, where they'll be delivering cargo for 5 years, 10 years, and then they'll go to passengers.
Yeah. Holy cow. So, all right. So that's pretty interesting over at Starship. Did you have anything else that was on your mind these days?
So there's 2 things for Tesla. One, we discussed it in your channel, but I'll discuss again, which is the Legoization and speed, Lego simplicity and speed to build Tesla cars. So the unbox process is basically, don't make the frame and then put in 8,000, 10,000 parts into it and then come out the other end, roughly in sequence. It's like I break it up into, say, simplify 8 pieces. So instead of 8 hours to make 8,000 parts, it's going to be 1 hour to make 10 pieces that each have 1,000 parts and then snap them all together. And they could drive that down to even faster if they do a series of castings to make what was one part into a bigger thing that's like 10 parts.
Yeah. So right now they've already reduced the number of parts by doing these castings. And the idea would be that they would do more castings, that there would be other places in the vehicle where a single cast piece, now it might not be the same kind of aluminum casting that they're using for the front and rear castings now. It might be a different material. It could even be a larger plastic,
Piece. Part.
Part, yes, or it could be fiberglass, or it could be whatever makes sense in terms of materials. Which certainly Tesla is among the best companies in the world at materials analysis. So you could end up then reducing parts. But you're saying not only do you reduce the parts, but now you build them into say 8 different I would call them a sub-assembly.
Sub-assembly, yeah.
So you have 8 sub-assemblies that you're building in various they could be above the section where you're going to assemble them. They could be off to the side of where you're doing it. They could be under it. We have all the dimensions to work with, but eventually in some kind of movement of this basic, the car itself, you'll add these other 8 pieces almost simultaneously.
Right. Right. And they're each designed to be, and there's a video by Autoline showing how they already can snap together pieces. The bumper can go in as a snap together piece. Only fits in one way. One guy lifts and snaps it in. Doesn't have to, it may end up like putting on 2 fasteners at the end, but it snaps and holds in place exactly where it's supposed to be. The trunk and other pieces all snap together. So having it kind of snap together, and then having easy joining, to reinforce the join happens after the fact, but it's easy for robots to do, right? Easy for humans to do, easy for robots to do.
Yeah, and it would seem like doing it this way, of course, when you eliminate parts and processes, then you make precision easier. Mm-hmm. If you've got lots of parts and you got lots of bolts and you got lots of fasteners, you got lots of welds, then when you bring everything together, precision can be a problem because the weld isn't always going to be the same and the bolt isn't going to be bolted down at exactly the same torque, or it might come loose over time. So you have all these kinds of issues that could make your precision in terms of the outside body be off, or even in terms of internal issues. And then you've got all these things that can come loose over time. So it seems like all of this would just make the car look better and last longer.
And the other thing is that Elon has referred to Lego precision. He talked about it for Cybertruck, where basically, if you have the angle, if it's off by, microns or something like that, then it's very visible. So Legos have micron level precision. So, that kind of goal, I think, is in Elon's mind of it.
Yeah.
So I think near term, just by going to 8 different pieces, you can get down to an hour, 2 hours of construction time from 8. And then with the further simplification, Lego precision, Lego inspired stuff over, 5 years, they can get into sub 15-minute construction and under 1,000 pieces, parts for the whole work. And again, all Tesla bots making this thing. So not just half Tesla bots, some humans, it could be like 90, 95% Tesla bots.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. What a world we live in.
Yeah. So one other thing would be FSD. Yes. Loads and loads of FSD stuff going on. So I've been running models on the FSD take rates.
Oh,
so full self-driving. Everyone's waiting for the version 12 to come out. They have to go through probably a couple months.
Let me interrupt you. Do you think Larry Ellison knows something that we don't?
I definitely do think he knows things that we don't. So Larry is I think the next biggest owner of Tesla after Elon, and yeah, so he went to an Oracle thing. And tell us about that.
So he, says, "Hey, look here. Here's a police car made out of a Cybertruck," and basically he made three pieces of news. I'll see if I remember all three. Number one was a police car, that he's specifically now designing, or his group is designing, that he believes will be the phenomenal police vehicle in the Cybertruck base. But number two, he said, FSD is coming soon. Now, everybody says FSD is coming soon, except for the doubters. The Tesla folks don't think it's coming soon, but everybody thinks it's coming soon. But I'm going to guess that maybe Larry's had a ride in the V12, or maybe he's been able to drive. Maybe he's got V12 on his car. Anyway, but that was certainly another piece of news. And I'm forgetting the third thing he said. What was it? Oh, darn. So sorry.
I'm not sure.
Talking.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he seems to think FSD is close by.
Right. So in terms of the take rates, I think
I'm sorry, I'll interrupt you. The other thing he said was the Cybertruck has a bunch of features or things that we don't know about yet. There's going to be surprises. He didn't say a surprise. He says surprises. So
great. A Cybertruck is like a box of chocolates. So for FSD take rate, so currently I did some calculations on that where it's roughly about 11% total fleet people buy FSD
in the US
and globally.
Globally, okay.
Yeah, and then but it is mostly in the US. In the US, it's close to 20%.
Okay,
and so if you have a far easier, smoother FSD version 12, right, then you can increase the take rate. Does it go to 30% in the United States? Can it go higher? You would start offering the free 2 month free trial on it. And then they're getting approved in China for FSD because currently I think they have full approvals in China and maybe not all European jurisdictions.
Right.
So the take rates are far lower, partially because people in Europe and Asia, China don't have as much money, aren't as rich as Americans, and then also because of regulatory restrictions. And also they don't work as well. They got trained, the FSD got trained in the United States mainly, and so they're not as used elsewhere.
Right.
So that, how quickly do they go towards 20% as well in those other places? And it'd be 20% for new cars and potentially for used cars. So the other ones where I said, I didn't buy it, but now that you give me a free trial, maybe I'll use it. So right now we passed 5 million vehicles. So if 10% of everyone bought, that'd be like 500,000 sales of the
times 12,000.
Times 12,000, right?
Real money.
So $6 billion or something like that. And then if they increase the number of vehicles and stuff like that, then getting up to 30%. If you have like 3 million vehicles sold next year, you could have, and then you sell another 500,000 this year, you'd be closing in on 8.5 million total fleet vehicles.
Right.
So then how many FSD sales do you have there? So I run some models on that for 5% take rate per unsold vehicle. That each year it improves, and I convince another 5% of people to get it. So the interesting thing is that it kind of crosses over. If they have 50% new people getting it, and then these 5%, what happens is that the number of people who don't have it keeps shrinking. So then, if it's 5% or 10%, it kind of crosses over again at like 2029, 2030, because the number of people who don't get it keeps shrinking.
Yeah.
If everyone said I love it, 10%, then almost everyone gets it, and so then you don't get any more sales because there's be some holdouts who never get it.
Right.
And then so it's interesting that after you have this surge either a fast or slow surge, and then it dies off
Yes.
because everyone got it, or everyone goes robotaxi or something.
Well, yes, but of course that's assuming that's just of course, the Tesla fleet. And then you've got the Ford fleet and the General Motors fleet. I mean, if they solve this is the first time I've really thought of this. If they literally solve it, let's say in the next 6 months, we'll just say 6 months. I mean, maybe it's longer, maybe it's short. Let's say in the next 6 months, because nobody else is close.
Mm-hmm.
And they literally solve it. I mean, to the point where Elon says, look, you can drive in the back seat. We're fine with it. Our insurance will cover you. You don't even have to have insurance. You will never be faulted if you are on FSD. Or he drives it across the country like he promised to do with no interventions. And we get to the place where it is 100%, no questions asked. It is solved, and pretty much everybody but what's his name, Johnson.
And Dan O'Dowd, I think,
Dan O'Dowd is the only one who doesn't believe it, and so, but everybody else is like, okay, it works. How many OEMs will not be getting in line to get it? I mean, I can't imagine how they're going to sit there and go, okay, we'll wait 3 years until maybe our team gets this right. Because I did this on my channel the other day with Larry Goldberg, I believe, where it's going to take 3 years. If they say today, if they come to Elon today and say, we want FSD in our cars, in fact, we want the entire operating system. I guess Elon who said it'll take 2 to 3 years before they will be able to start producing that finished product with the entire operating system or just the FSD in the car.
Right. So, but the announcement will be 2 or 3 years before.
Yes, it has to be.
So then there's I think probably with Herbert and others are saying, you probably hear it too, that the first FSD license thing, is imminent. The drumbeat, Elon's talking as close, others talking close, and it could be like that charging thing where basically everyone announces it. It still takes time. Like it doesn't happen until 2024. It doesn't happen until for Honda for 2025, just for charging, right? So these other things could happen, and then the fact that all the analysts know it's gonna happen means that the stock shoots up because they got to model it in. Right.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely.
And then the whole modeling in thing. So as we've talked about energy, and now we're talking about FSD and all that kind of stuff. So we know that that's going to be a big part of the money. When it becomes material, over 5%, over 10%, whatever the number is, they're going to break out the energy. I think they're saying in like 2 quarters, to break out energy in the annual report on it, and it's showing its own growth, showing its own profit as a projection. They break out FSD and autopilot and software and stuff like that. Next year, if they sell 500,000 units of FSD next year, right? That's $6 billion. That could be $4 or $5 billion of profit.
Yeah,
$1 billion per quarter. $1 billion per quarter. That's material. I got to break on my own line on that. So then, impossible for any analyst to say, I'm going to ignore FSD and energy, because I'm basically crossing out huge sections of the quarterly report in the 10K. It's saying there, it's there. I'm going to drop it out because
because why?
So just like, I'm going to ignore AWS. Right. It's 20% in 2017 or whatever. It's 2018 it was 20% of their profits and of their revenue, and then now it's 70% of their profits. You can't say I can analyze Amazon and I ignore AWS because I don't believe in cloud computing. It's like, so I think there's the big announcements. Like, so FSD, when do they get a licensing? When do they get off beta and no deferred revenue? When do they break it out as a line item? So when's your guess? When do they break it out as a line item?
Well, they'll break it out as I think they'll break it out as a line item, as you point out, when it is material. And it could, if again, I think that it won't take very long, because if there's no announcements in the next, month or 2 months by any of these OEMs, if and when it becomes official that it is 100% working, I don't see how maybe somebody will put a comment below as to how these OEMs will be able to resist signing up for it unless their engineers are telling them that they are literally a few months away from having something that actually is 100% too, because they'll be out of business.
But the thing is, they have to add it. They can add in ADAS, driver assist, right?
Yeah.
But their robotaxi model, like GM owns Cruise.
Right.
They're saying, okay, I'm going to stick it into city by city, 2,000
Right.
robotaxis and stuff like that. That is a 10, 20-year rollout to 20 or 40 cities.
Yeah.
Right. They cannot get to an FSD for everyone kind of thing. They have to make all new cars because they got to change their models to include their own hardware.
Yeah.
And the thing is, that goes to, they're using LiDAR right now. There's 80 LiDAR companies. There was less than 100,000 auto-grade LiDARs made in 2021, right? And I need 8 per car.
Yeah.
So, and half of them are used for ADAS.
Yeah.
So I can't even make, with LiDAR, any ADAS or robotaxi at more than 200,000 units per year.
Years and years to ramp up the LiDAR or any other system. I don't care, LiDAR, whatever system they think they're going to use to ramp up the number of cameras that they would need to put in these cars. I mean, it's going to be a big ramp up. That's why I don't understand that it's like I've said to you before, I think, and maybe I know I say it on my channel all the time. It's like how companies like this that have these highly paid leaders who pay no attention to demographics. And the demographics are insidious. That's the wrong word. Demographics just happen. You don't have to guess. It's not like the atmosphere where we're trying to guess about the future of what carbon's going to do to the atmosphere. No, with demographics, I am going to be a year older next year, as will all my cohorts. And a certain percentage are going to die, and you can be pretty clear on how many that's going to be. And we know how many babies were born. I mean, it's like demographics. So the same thing is true here. It's like, okay, no, you can't be absolutely sure that Elon's ever going to get it 100% right. Man, you can look at these YouTube videos right now, and you can look at what Elon just did in Palo Alto, or whichever one of your northern cities that was. There's a big thing between us and Northern California. We hate them, and we hate the 49ers, and we hate the.
For those people who know, Randy's in Los Angeles, and then I'm in the Bay Area. Yeah, but the thing is, so it's like anyone who says, like Gary Black and blah blah blah, they can all just catch up, right?
Yeah,
the thing is, the factories don't exist.
Insanity.
The factories don't exist for their EVs. The factories don't exist for their LiDAR, right? So how can I'm going to have blah, blah, blah million things with what?
Yeah.
You're using this and that product doesn't exist. Your supply chain. Just like I'm going to pump out cars, but my semiconductors aren't good enough. I need those parts. So
as Kathy Wood says, winner takes most.
That's right. Okay. Well, it's a great talk with you, Randy, and we'll talk again, hopefully soon.
Totally enjoyed it.
Okay. And join Nextibigfuture, subscribe, like and subscribe. Also go to Randy Kirk's YouTube channel, and hit up both up on Patreon, and Elon the fan. So you should be too.
Buy our book.
And buy our book as well. Yes. Okay. See you next time. Bye-bye.